Hello, my name is Henry. I'm a medical doctor and I'll be sharing today some information about vaccines for this online church talk. Now, this important topic of vaccines does indeed have two important components, and we are looking at both sides of the discussion in today's talk. Now, we traditionally look at people who are either pro or anti-vaccine into two dichotomous groups, one side and the other. But the World Health Organization has actually defined people as either vaccine acceptors or vaccine reluctants. And indeed, there is actually a continuum and a big decision-making process that goes in the middle. There are people or groups of people that are willing to fully accept all vaccines that are offered, and others that are fully rejecting all vaccines that are offered. But of course, there is a big zone in the middle. And even individuals can be within different parts of this continuum, and we indeed are making decisions based on information and context all the time. And so today's talk is going to be talking a bit about the background as to what vaccines actually are, what some of the processes that go into producing a vaccine, and then going into some of these issues about decision making into whether individuals or groups of people are willing to accept or continue to be hesitant or reluctant to vaccines. And I hope that this talk will be able to shed some light into these issues. Now, in terms of what vaccines actually are, vaccines are a way that we can protect ourselves against certain diseases. And we can protect ourselves from the infective component of the disease by exposing the body to a low-level form of the pathogen, the bacteria or the virus, in a hope that the body will have an immune response, of which will then, when the real virus or bacteria comes along, we're able to fully and more effectively overcome this virus without having the disease symptoms. Now, because of this, these vaccines must be delivered in a safe manner and also must be effective as well. And the interesting thing about the more recent COVID-19 vaccines that are being developed is that they are vaccines that have been developed that are novel and brand new. They've never had this type of vaccine administered to humans on a wide scale before, particularly in the leading candidates that are currently in the media at the moment. So therefore, people are naturally concerned about the safety and effectiveness because these are new vaccines, and of course because we'd like to see the end of the pandemic as soon as possible. So, we have also seen in the media that there are indeed multiple stages as to how a vaccine is developed, and that development phase does traditionally take up to 10 to 15 years to go from research and identifying how a disease actually works and how a vaccine could work, all the way up to final approval, mass production, and then distribution. And this is obviously very expensive, and there are multiple stages for this to occur. Now, in terms of the clinical components of vaccine development, there are three phases of which are very important for us to understand, because these are the phases which then progress from one to another to then finally allow a vaccine to be approved for mass distribution. These three phases go through issues of safety and issues of effectiveness. So the initial phase just tests the vaccine itself to see whether it's safe and if there are any side effects for healthy individuals. And then finally it moves to phase 3, of which we're looking at to see whether the vaccine is actually effective and protects against the disease on a wide scale. But all the way through, even during phases of mass distribution and mass availability and administration of the vaccine, it's still constantly monitored for safety and effectiveness, and at any time a vaccine can be recalled if there are any issues with it. And importantly, there are very strict governing procedures that are underway for all components of these steps, just to make sure they are indeed fully safe and fully effective. But as we know from past history, unfortunately, there have been some vaccines that haven't been fully safe or fully effective for a number of reasons. Now, the other concern people have is, how can we develop COVID-19 vaccines so quickly? Like, how is it that other vaccines take 10 to 15 years and this particular vaccine has taken only 10 to 15 months? And part of the reason for that is because we are able to have components of the vaccine development process done in parallel rather than sequential. So we can overlap the timeframes. And a lot of the time saving within the COVID-19 vaccine development has been in administration, data collection and data analysis, and also in recruitment of patients. And so we are able to accelerate some parts of the vaccine development process in COVID-19, but there are some parts that cannot be accelerated, particularly in the monitoring of side effects, and especially those that may occur after a period of time. And so these sort of issues are being constantly monitored, and there are still some outstanding questions that people have in terms of safety and effectiveness as well, particularly looking at safety issues such as will the vaccine itself cause adverse events? Can it overstimulate the immune response, and so therefore it can be even worse than the disease itself? And finally, the other safety concern that people have is things such as whether the vaccine itself actually protects, or whether it actually does its job as what it's supposed to do without the absence of any other effects too. So these are a lot of the issues that are coming to light, particularly because of the accelerated nature of how the COVID-19 vaccine has been developed. Now let's go now that we have this background, let's go now into a bit deeper into what are some of the issues behind vaccine acceptance or vaccine reluctance. Now, some of the big issues that have been researched in the past by the World Health Organization and by individuals revolve around whether people are willing to take on a vaccine. The one big issue is trust. Do we actually trust either the government agency or the health agency or the pharmaceutical company or whoever has developed the vaccine? How much do we trust that group or agency that are promoting it? And also, how much do we trust the process as to how the vaccine has now come to be recommended and then be distributed? Particularly if the agencies, such as the company or the government, has had a bad track record. There may have been side effects in the past, there may have been mismanagement, there may have been also issues with maybe financial concerns or ethical issues. If there are any issues like that, then people are going to be less trusting when the vaccines are promoted. And if they are less trusting, then they're obviously going to be more hesitant. But however, if the process has been very robust, very honest, one that has acknowledged both failings and successes, then the public and individuals may be more willing to trust when the vaccine is actually promoted. Next is the issue of safety, and I've talked a little bit about this already, particularly the processes of safety, but of course we are obviously concerned about whether a vaccine is safe, because vaccines are given to healthy individuals that do not yet have the disease, and if these healthy individuals end up with worse side effects than before, then obviously it hasn't done the job. The other concern about safety is that is it also safe in certain groups of populations, such as children, maybe pregnant women, immunocompromised, maybe the elderly. Maybe these are the sort of groups that we are actually targeting for the vaccine. Are they going to be further compromised by being given an agent? And also, are they deemed safe in the sense that if a vaccine is not given, is the virus or the disease itself going to circulate widely and cause more harm? So we have safety on both sides of the coin, not only the disease itself, stopping it hopefully, and then creating community safety, or the other side of the coin, the administration of the treatment that can cause more harm than good. And even if safety is a concern in 1, 2, or even 3 individuals, this can still be enough for a vaccine to not be accepted. Next issue is whether people are actually open to change, whether they're willing to move on their decision-making process or not, whether they will stay reluctant or stay accepting, or anywhere in between. And obviously, if they're not open to change, then it's unlikely that they are going to either accept or to change their point of view in the future. These openness to change can be either on a factual level or a rational level or on an emotional level. And there are many factors that are involved when we consider whether someone is open to change and more willing to be accepting or continue to be hesitant. And there are other issues as well: cultural, social, how the vaccine is actually delivered, whether it's delivered easily or it can be easily accessed by the population, and of course if there is a cost involved too. So finally, we're just going to look into what are some of the influences into people's decision-making process for things such as vaccines and treatments, and also how are individuals able to influence others. Now, in terms of what influences people's decision-making, we have seen it can come from health professionals, the government, media, scientific journals, from community leaders, from word of mouth, and also from social media. And all of these things can influence individuals or communities' decision of whether to take on a treatment or not. And often these things work together in parallel or may build up in order to have someone continue to be reluctant or continue to or to finally be accepting. In a similar way, if an individual is reluctant or accepting, then they can in turn influence others, and they can influence either their family, their friends, colleagues, and voice their opinion on social media platforms or through more formal avenues such as lobby groups or the government. And so it's important that we do recognize how we are influenced by the information that we do receive and in what format that is delivered. And we also can look into how we are also influencing others by making a decision, but also by discussing and being open about our opinions about these things. And it's important to look at how this can affect us and how we are affecting others. So I hope today's talk has given us some background information into what vaccines are about, how they, the processes and how they developed, and also what are some of the issues when it comes to accepting or being hesitant with vaccines. And I hope that this background will give us more impotence for greater discussion and more in-depth discussion when we move into the more formal talk that we'll have on Sunday at 10 o'clock. So I hope this background information has been useful for you, and I hope that this will continue to allow us to have a more balanced view and to be more open on important issues such as vaccines and their effectiveness and their safety. Thank you.